the graduation approach or graduation program focuses on reaching the folks that we don't normally reach. So that's the ultra poor and poor, and it's sort of a graduated approach out of poverty. But we're not necessarily looking to move them up several steps. What we're looking for is to make them on equal footing as Ecuadorians. So the ultra poor Ecuadorians normally have access to services, they have networks, and we're trying to make the refugees also have those same access to those same sorts of services.
Ayuda bastante, tanto hasta para uno poder ahorrar más y tener más utilidad para cualquier cosa, para los estudios de los niños, porque para las enfermedades, a veces uno se enferma, no tiene ni para una pastilla, nada. A veces ni para la lonchera, para los hijos, a veces.
We're looking at 200 families. It's a mix of Ecuadorians and refugees. And they live in the same communities. These are people that we don't normally serve. The first step, which is constant throughout the whole year, is access to food. They give them access to food, they get coupons, and that's sustained through the whole year so that they can then build upon their different other resources. It also gives them access to savings. It gives them access to capacity building, vocational training, and then it's periodic mentoring, which is really key. It's trying to identify people's, the weak spots before they happen. And then at the end of the program, they either have their own jobs, or they are placed with different organizations in the locality. So at the end of it, the whole idea of this is they have access to some sort of sustainable livelihood, sustainable income. So the issue with the ultra poor, serving the ultra poor, is that they do need access to all of these different components in order to be able to graduate at the end. And it is, microcredit in the past, just on its own with the ultra poor, is not successful because they really need to build upon all these other aspects of having a sustainable livelihood, which includes savings, the concept of saving, which is very important. They have to have, as they say, some skin in the game. So they have to be able to save, they have to be able to have access to financial services, because that also opens the door to other things, which is access to loans, access to remittances, access to micro insurance. So it's building upon all of these skill sets so that they do have some sort of protective mechanism at the end of this.
El programa psicosocial es un programa muy importante que transversaliza absolutamente todo el programa de medios de vida. Una persona que viene con diferentes situaciones de trauma, una mujer violada, una mujer que sufrió violencia o una familia que sufrió violencia, realmente llega paralizada, sin recursos para poder seguir adelante en la búsqueda del medio de vida. En ese sentido, lo que hace el programa psicosocial es restablecer esas potencialidades que le dejaron paralizados y que se han quedado paralizadas por esa violencia.
So the ingredients for success for livelihoods here in Ecuador, I would say, is beginning with sort of technical expertise. So somebody or some team that can help, multifunctional team that can help guide the thinking around what are the different components of our livelihood strategy. Then it's buy-in both from UNHCR as well as the government, because people will ultimately find sustainable livelihoods if they're integrated into existing mechanisms versus parallel programs that UNHCR funds. Then it has to trickle down. It has to trickle down. So I am in a field office at the border. I need to be able to understand how what I do fits into building up sustainable livelihoods on a sort of a national basis.
El ACNUR desde hace un par de años, nosotros como socios del ACNUR, hace muchos años, pero hace un par de años, el ACNUR empezó con el proceso de soluciones integrales para refugiados. En ese sentido, ha habido todo el tiempo ha habido como una transmisión de información de lo que significa soluciones integrales para los refugiados, y el tema, digamos, enlazado al tema medios de vida. En ese sentido, el ACNUR está todo el tiempo al lado del socio, dándole la información, apoyando técnicamente para que el socio pueda entender.
In terms of the importance of partnerships with livelihoods, Since that's not something that we do, nor should it be something that we start. We should not be starting livelihoods programs, interventions, because they already exist, especially in a country like Ecuador. So it's finding those partners, it's going a little bit out of our comfort zone. It's looking at development partners. It's looking at foundations. It's looking at the private sector. A common understanding of what livelihoods is and the importance that it's not a separate theme. It's not separate from what UNHCR does. It's not, it is part of the typical CAN maintenance. So we have to start thinking about this from the onset. And then realizing, again, I keep going back to technical expertise because we do need technical expertise. We can't assume that it's something that it's added on to people's existing workloads if they don't understand exactly how does this translate into everything that we do on a day-to-day basis, from the time somebody shows up with their suitcases, just cross the border, starting to think about self-reliance and livelihoods.